Hey guys, and welcome back to another episode of the Dev Marketer channel. This is the channel where we help you build and grow your next great idea. Now this video is a continuation of our ReCaptcha form video, where we take a Laravel form and we add a ReCaptcha to our Laravel form and talk about how to implement that to make it as secure as possible. We obviously don't want robots or spam bots filling in our forms and sending us emails or signing up for our site. So this is a good way to prevent that from happening. In the previous video, and if you want to go back and watch that, the links for that are going to be down in the description. But the previous video, we talked about the basic install. We got our API key from Google. We set up a client-side verification just to see if Google's given a token or not. And, they can't submit the form now, thanks to some jQuery we wrote, unless they actually say, submit it and Google gives them a token. Let's see here. Let's verify that. So now that we have the token, we're able to submit the form. So we can submit our form and we get back, it repeats our name and has a picture of either a male or a female person, depending on the gender. Okay, so that's all our application does. It's really for demonstration purposes. Now, this video, we're going to go into what I was calling the advanced install. It's not advanced in that it's hard. It's just advanced in that it's more secure and it does more research basically than the basic install, which is the one we did last time. In the last video, all we did was check to see if they have a token, but we didn't verify that the token is actually the one that Google gave them. And in this video, we're going to actually take the token that we get on the server side, and we're going to take that out to Google, ask Google if this is the one that they actually gave us, or they gave the client back when they started to submit the form, and we're going to verify those. And if they match, then we're going to actually know that we can store whatever this data we have in the database, or we can send an email or something, because we know it's 100% secure. Okay, so let's go ahead and dive into this project right now and just get that second part done, because we're going to be hitting up an API. We're going to be doing a lot of stuff in this video. Hey guys, I just wanted to mention that if you are just jumping in on this video, you weren't on the last video, and you want to have the source code that I'm starting with, all the source code that we left off with in the last video is available on GitHub. So you can go to GitHub, download the Laravel project there, and that way you have the same source code that I'm working with here. Okay, so just go down to the description and you're going to find the link for GitHub Basic. Okay, there's it's the basic tag or whatever, and that's gonna have that's where we left off in the last video. So that way you have everything that I have. You can start where I am in this video. Okay, just wanted to mention that real fast. Let's get back to it. Now, one thing I thought would be kind of cool to mention is that I don't think I actually brought it up in the last video, but the reason that this ReCaptcha form is so cool is because it actually does a lot more than those older ReCaptchas where you had to identify the image and try to type in the letters that it was. It does a lot more than those do. Those basically you just had to confirm an image. This one actually kind of scans the location of your mouse on the screen. It looks at the IP address. It takes a lot of things into account. And most of the time, most users are going to be able to just check this box and not have to fill out the quiz like I had. That quiz is only if Google's unsure that they weren't able to completely confirm that you have human-like behaviors in the way you filled out the form. The reason I think I'm having to do it so many times is because I've submitted this form so many times so quickly, and I'm kind of acting robotic about it because we're not actually filling out these other fields and stuff like that. And Google takes all that into account when it's deciding whether to submit an API token or submit the ReCaptcha token to this form and check the box and everything like that. So anyway, it's a pretty advanced form. I thought you guys might find that interesting. Okay, so now let's talk about how we implement this right now in this project. So I'm going to open our project back up in Sublime, and we're going to head on over to our controller and just take a look at. All right, so we've got right now, this is our post form. So when the form is submitted, it goes to this function. We grab the name from the request, we grab the gender from the request, nothing fancy there. Currently, we're grabbing the token as well from the request. We go to the request and we grab the field called ReCaptcha response. You make sure you type this in exactly. This is exactly the way that Google submits it, and we need to grab it from the way that Google puts it on the form. So this is the way that Google has it, so we grab that. Currently what we're doing, this is our only validation right now. So we're just saying, hey, is there a token at all? If there is, then we're going to go ahead and assume it's safe and return the view and submit the information. Otherwise, we're just going to redirect them back. And obviously you could add a session, a flash message here. You could add all sorts of stuff, but we're just keeping it easy because we're focused on the ReCaptcha form. Okay, so what we want to do here is we're actually going to go ahead and kill a lot of this. And well, we'll keep the basic layout, I guess. But what we want to do at this point is actually add a second layer of security. So instead of just seeing if there's a token, a hacker could basically add any characters into that field to try to fake that they're human. So it's not 100% secure. So what we need to do is go out, we need to grab this token like we have, and we need to now ask Google if that token is the one that they intended to give us, all right? And so this is what we call server-side validation. Before we actually go out and do it, I just want to mention one last thing for those of you guys that are wondering why we're not using Ajax or some sort of asynchronous JavaScript to do this. And I actually tried this when testing it out. Google said not to do it, and I like, why can't you? So I tried it anyway, because it made sense to me that you would just test it before on the client side, and then you could also test it on the server side. And Google actually, when they issue the token to after they confirm that someone is human, they issue that token. That token is only valid for one verification, which means that if I try to verify that token on the client side while doing an Ajax request before they submit the form, if I try to validate that token with Google, Google will give me a validation back, but then the user would then have to resubmit the form, get a new token, resubmit the ReCaptcha, get a new token, and then I would have to confirm that on the client's or on the server side as well. But anyway, the token can only be verified one time, and then it becomes no longer valid. And I tested this, and it was true. Once I confirmed that token once, if I tried to do it on the client's or on the server side, then it didn't work. So as far as I know, and I could be wrong, but as far as I know, Google in their documentation says not to do it, and I couldn't find a way to actually verify with Google that the token is accurate before submitting the form. I couldn't do that. Well, I could, but then it wouldn't work on the server side as well. So you can basically only validate one time and per request. So you can only do it one time. And so if you're only allowed to do it one time, you're going to want to do it on the server side, because the server side is the final layer of protection before we go into before we actually submit something to the database. It's what the users the client people don't have access to, right? We have 100% control on the server side. So that's why you want to do server-side validation for everything, even if you have front-side validation. Remember that front-side validation is always just a nice feature to have. It improves the user experience, but it's not, you can't depend on it for security, okay? Server-side validation is what you rely on for security. And so we're going to be doing server-side validation for the final layer of security to confirm that they are who they say they are, okay? So let's head back over to Google documentation just to see how they tell us to do it, and then I'll show you guys how to do it ourselves. So I've got Google open here. You can see here that all right, so it tells you here client-side integration, which we did in the last video, and then step 2 is server-side integration. And it says that when your users submit the form where you integrated ReCaptcha, you'll get, as part of the payload string, the name jReCaptcha response. That's why we have over here, that's why we're getting this payload right here, jReCaptcha response, is because that's how Google submits it on our form. In order to check whether Google has verified that user, send a post request with these parameters. So it's telling us that on the server side, we need to then send a post request to Google. It gives us the URL that we should send it to. And then it tells us that these are the parameters that we need to send. So we can send, we obviously need to send our secret key. This is our API key that we got. It's the same key we got up here. And then we need to send in the response key, and it's the value of the jCaptcha response. So the response parameter needs to be our token, okay, that we've collected. And then the final thing is, if you really want to be secure, you can grab the user's remote IP address and then you can submit that. But we're not going to be doing that, and I don't really think you need to. Google's handling a lot of that behind the scenes. All right. So with that being said, let's go ahead and actually implement that. Now, in order to basically send a request to Google, we need to be able to send an HTTP request. Now, there's one way that's built into PHP to do that, and it's called curl. And curl requests get tricky, just to be completely honest. And so we're going to actually be using an easier method than curl, because you can see here, this is curl. I don't know if any of you guys have ever tried to use curl. This is what it tends to look like. It tends to get super clunky. And so there's actually an easier way with Laravel that we can do this. It's actually integrated into Laravel. We still need to pull in the PHP library, but it's called Guzzle. All right, and I think it's guzzlephp.com, php.org is what it is. And anyway, so it's called Guzzle, and Guzzle is going to allow us to send those requests, and it's much, much easier than using curl. Okay, so this is what we're going to bring in and we're going to use. And this is really good if you're going to be talking to any other API. I suggest you use curl or use Guzzle. It's just so much easier to work with. It's really, really nice, and it makes things a lot just simpler and faster. Okay, so now to bring curl in, to bring Guzzle into Laravel, it's actually not in there by default. You need to bring it in manually. So we're gonna head on over to our terminal. Make sure you're in your project file here, and we're going to now add it to our composer file. So we're gonna do composer require, and we're gonna say Guzzle http/Guzzle. And you're gonna click enter. And this is now going to go out, find the repository we're talking about, and add it to our composer.json file. And then I think it also goes back out and automatically does a composer update to install everything. Okay, so here we go. Composer.json was added, and then when it's doing composer update right now to load Guzzle, install it in our project, and to load all the dependencies. So let's go ahead and just wait for that to process real quick. Okay, so mine finished processing. Just so you guys know, I have a really, really fast internet connection and a really, really fast computer, and mine took almost a minute, okay? So if you don't have a super fast internet connection or a super fast computer, it might take longer. The only reason I say that is just because some people think it's broken. Just let this thing run its course. It takes a while. It took a minute on my computer, which is pretty best case scenario probably. So if you have a slower connection or a slower computer, you might be looking at 2, 3, 4 minutes. Okay, so I'm just saying that to let you guys know that nothing's necessarily wrong. It just takes a while. Okay, all right. So you can see here it brought in some dependencies. It brought in Guzzle and then some dependencies that it requires, and then it went ahead and optimized everything, and we're good to go. All right. So now we have access to Guzzle. So what we're going to do is we're going to bring Guzzle in onto, and I think to use Guzzle, we need to restart our PHP server. So let's go ahead and just restart it real quick. Of course, it won't matter when we're writing code, but just when we go to actually use it, I think it requires a server restart. All right, now in order to use Guzzle in our controller here, we actually need to bring it in. So we're going to say use Guzzle HTTP. And then we're going to do /client. All right. So this is what you want to bring in. And this will actually allow us to now access Guzzle by just using this client class right here. Okay. Okay. So now what we're going to do is, now that we have access to Guzzle, we're actually going to actually send that request to Google. So now in order to do that, we actually want to make sure we have a token to send before we do it. So I'm actually going to do the server request inside of this if statement. All right, so we currently grab the token from the request and we just call it token. That's an easy way to handle it, where we've got it saved into this variable. Then we verify that there is a token, which is good. And we only want to really send that HTTP request if we think that there's some sort of token, right? If there's no token at all, it's not even worth sending the HTTP request. We can just have it bounce out and go back to our user. We'd probably send off a flash message or something just to say that we couldn't verify and to submit the form again. But that's basically what we want to do. So we're going to do all of our work inside of this portion of the if statement because we don't want to be working with an HTTP request when we don't even have a token, okay? So that's why we're sending it here. All right, now first things first is when you're setting up Guzzle, you need to create a variable, or not a variable, an object for your client. All right, so you can name it anything, but I just like to call it client to keep it consistent. And we're gonna call it new client, all right? And that initializes a new object for your Guzzle client, all right? And then what we're going to do, I should just say real quick, for those of you guys that have never used Guzzle before, usually if you're gonna be doing lots of API requests, say to like Twitter or something like that, you would normally add something called a base URL here. And then the base URL you'd set equal to like, I don't remember if this is Google, Twitter's or something, but I think it's api.twitter.com or something like that, right? And so you would add your base URL here, and that way later when we do it, we can just do like /users/ J. Curtis or something, and then it would just tack that onto the base URL. So that's something you would normally do if you're doing a lot of API requests. In this case, we're leaving it blank just because we're only sending it to one. So I'm not going to set up a base URL. All right. I just want to let you guys know, for those of you guys that have never used this before, how you might do it in the future. Okay, so the second thing we want to do is this is where we actually send out our request. So you remember when we looked at curl, how you had like 8 to 15 lines of setup in order to actually send the request? This is why Guzzle is so cool, is we do client, new client, and then we can basically send the request right away. It's super easy. All right, so we're gonna, basically what we're doing here is we're actually creating, let me just make this, hopefully I can make this make sense. What we're gonna do is we're gonna take our client and then we're going to send a post request. So this is very Laravel-esque. You can send a post request, you can send a get request, you can send a put request, you can send a delete request. All of these things, just kind of like the routes file. So we're gonna send a post request, and then we're going to send it to that URL. So let's actually go get the URL real quick. So the URL is the on the Google page, on the ReCaptcha form, it's this URL here. So go ahead and just copy your URL like that. And we're going to paste it in here. So this is the URL that we're going to send a post request to, just like it said to do in the documentation. And then the second parameter we pass in is going to be the data that we want to send in with the post request. Okay, so let's go ahead here and we're going to fill out this data. The data that we're sending is these things. So we're sending something called secret, and we're giving it our API key, and then we're going to set another parameter called response, and we're going to make that the token, okay? Just to kind of clarify what we're doing. Now, what we need to do, though, is we create an array. That's why we got these square brackets here. So an array for all of the parameters we're sending in. And then this is just something that Guzzle requires us to do. We always send something called form params, okay? And these are the parameters of the actual data that you want to send in, okay? So this is something you always send with Guzzle. All right, and then we're going to set our form parameters equal to another array. Just to make it cleaner, we'll do array like this. Okay, and we're going to set this equal to another array, and then this will equal all the data we want to send in. So we wanted to send in secret. So we're sending in secret, and it's going to be equal to this. All right, and then we're also sending in, was it response? I think it was called response. And response is equal to our token. So we can just get rid of that and call it token. And then that's everything that we need. All right, so this is gonna go out, it's gonna get our, it's actually gonna send a post request using our client that we just initialized, and it's going to give it all these parameters, okay? Now, we want to obviously save all that data somewhere, so we're going to set it equal to response, like that. So we just took all this here. It's going to save the results of that into an object called response, and that way down here we can access the responded data by calling response, okay? So that's why we did that. Okay, so then for this, what we can do is we can then take our response and we can do something called get body, and this gets the body of the HTTP request back from the user. Now the body contains all sorts of data that we don't need. All we need is the main JSON response, which is get contents. Okay, so with that we now have access to the actual JSON. Now of course we don't want JSON. We want, because we're working with PHP, so we need to do JSON decode to decode the JSON, because this right here is going to return JSON, and we don't want JSON. If we were working with JavaScript, we want JSON, but we're working with PHP, so we need to take the JSON, we need to decode it into a PHP object, and that's what this JSON decode does. And then now that we have this decoded as a PHP object, we need to save it into a PHP object. So we're going to call result equals JSON decode, okay? Again, you can name it anything. I'm just going to call it result. All right, so then now we have the response back from Google saved inside of this result, so we can make another if statement here, and we're going to say if results success, meaning that would be true. Now you might wonder how how do I know that it's going to look like success? Let's take a look real quick. I think you come over here to the ReCaptcha documentation, and it tells you what. Here you go. Okay, so it says when you send an API request to the user, basically what we just looked at. You send a post request. You send this data. This is the response you would expect back. All right, so the response is going to be a JSON object, but we're converting it to a PHP object. And then this is what it's going to look like. So we're going to have a parameter called success. We're going to have a parameter called challenge TS, which is the timestamp that they submitted the form. And then we're going to have a parameter for host name, which is going to be the URL, or not the URL, like the remote IP address that they submitted it from. And then if there's errors, we might have one called error codes. Okay, so that is basically what we're getting back. That's why I know that I can use this success, because that will be part of the object that we get in return. So if success, it says here, will either be true or false. So that's why I can do here results success, is because this will come back either true or false. If it was a failure, then I could catch it with this else statement, right? And I could output some sort of flash message with my error code, because I'd have access to something called results error code, like that, and that will give us the error code, which will be, or error codes, it's plural, which will be one of these three error codes. So it'll either tell you that a secret parameter is missing or whatever. Okay, so then I could output that to the user, so then they know why it wasn't submitted. Okay, and I can do that here in this else statement. All right, so now let's just say up here we know that it was successful. And once we know it's successful, we can actually create so let's go ahead and just create a flash message. We're gonna do flash equals success, and set that equal to, yes, we know you are human. And then for the error code, we can basically say session flash error. You are probably a robot. Okay, now for a better user experience, you would probably actually figure out what error code they got and then give them that information. But that would be easy for you guys to tell. You're just gonna grab, you guys can do this on your own if you need to do it. You would just grab basically results, error codes, and then you would figure out which error code they got. Okay, so you're gonna get either, it would either equal this, it would equal this, it would equal this, or it equal that. Okay, so it's gonna be one of those, and then this is what is wrong when it gets those responses. So you could figure that out, which error code they got, and send them back the right data. I'm not gonna do that though, because you guys could know how to do that. It'd be easy. All right. Let's see. Everything else there, I think, is good. The last thing that we want to do, I guess, is submit the form. So, oh, we've already got that here. So we're good. So we're going to return the view and the name with the gender. I guess we don't want to do that if there's an error. So let's bring that up here. We're going to paste that into there. And then if they come back with an error, we're going to return a redirect. And we're going to redirect them back home with that flash error message, okay? So that's all it takes, guys. Let's go ahead and test it out and make sure this works. So let's come back over to our project. CAPTCHA test, refresh. Of course, we get an error. This happens when you type a lot of code and runs. Let's see, line 28. So line 28 is right here. Oh, we've got a semicolon here. Okay, we don't need a semicolon because this is actually all one continuous line. From here to here is one line. It looks like it's a break off of a line, but it's not. So it doesn't need a semicolon. Let's see what else. Let's just read through this one. Let's make sure we don't have any other errors. Client equals response equal response. Oh, we spelled this wrong. Response equals client post. Okay, result equals JSON to code. Response. Okay, these match. We spelled this one wrong. That would have caused an error. And then let's see. Results equal. Okay, we got another error here. So results. And result. I need to make sure these match. I'm known for messing up on those type of things. Okay, so and response is correct. Session flash. Okay, we need to pull in our session also. So let's come up to the top and say use session. And I think this should be good. Let's try this. I think everything else looked good. Yeah, everything else looks good. Okay, Let's test this, refresh. Okay, so we're gonna say James is my name. We're gonna verify that we're not a robot. We need all the drinks. Is all those drinks? I think so. Let's try it. Okay, say my name, and it works. It says hello James, which means everything was successful. Let's try it without, well, it won't let us, will it? It's not gonna let us submit it unless we don't have it. So anyway, so everything is working correctly. Just one last demonstration. What I'll show you guys is, let's do instead of returning the view, we're going to do a die dump, and we're going to give the results, okay? So we're basically going to take the response, we're going to decode the JSON, and then I'm going to just show you guys what this results object looks like, okay? So let's save that, come over here, and we're going to fill it out one more time. And I just want to show you guys what this looks like before we finish things up. Okay. Say my name, and then what we'll get back, here we go. Here, so this is the object that we get back from Google. And it's exactly what they told us it was going to look like. Remember, over here it said that this is what we can expect to look back. We'll have some success, will either be true or false. Challenge TS will be a timestamp, and then the host name will be a string, which is the IP address for the user. Now, or the remote IP, which I'm on localhost right now. So we got the host name is a localhost. The timestamp is a timestamp of when I submitted it. And then obviously success was true. So I just wanted to show you guys how you can tell what's coming back from Google, because they tell you in the API docs. Okay. So anyway, I hope that was fun for you guys. Obviously, before we continue, we'll get rid of the die dump. Let's get rid of this DD right here and just let it actually do its job. I'll go ahead and save this. And you guys can double check, all this code will be on GitHub. So all this code will be up on GitHub. So if you want to take a look at it there, you can take a look at it on there as well. I'm also posting a blog post about this with more information if you want to read it over there as well. That's just going to be on devmarketer.io, and you can take a look at it in words, I guess. So we'll be having that over there. If you guys have any comments or questions, feel free to head on over to the blog, and you can check it out there, or you can obviously comment below, and I'll do my best, or someone else can help you out. You can always reach out to me on Twitter at _JACurtis, JACURTIS. Let me know how you enjoyed this tutorial series. I had a lot of fun doing it. These are the kinds of series I want to do a little bit more of, where we just kind of focus on one little thing and show you guys how to do it. It's kind of fun because we don't have to focus on all the large parts of the application. But so anyway, these kind of things I think are fun to learn with. So I hope you guys enjoyed this series. If you are new to this channel and haven't watched a video from me before, the Dev Marketer channel is a channel where it's a community where we all try to help each other build and grow our next great ideas. The channel's growing really, really quick, and we'd love to have you on board. Feel free to subscribe below. Liking and commenting, it also helps as well. Just kind of get it out to more people on YouTube. But obviously the subscribe will let you know when we post more videos. All right, so that's everything I got for you guys today. I'm going to see you guys in the next video.